All right, welcome to episode 4 of the Ask the Agent show. We're here live with Steve Rovitis from Rovitis Realty. Steve?
What's up?
Always a pleasure.
We're ready.
So today we're going to talk about something that I think not a lot of agencies are doing, especially in this area, which is coming soon marketing. Now, I think from a marketing perspective, there's a lot of value that can be added to your clients by doing this stuff. So let's just jump right into it. What exactly is coming soon marketing?
Sure. So there's any marketing that you were doing prior to putting the property into the MLS system. So I think there's a lot of confusion out there. Can you do this? Think about like what people were doing prior to MLS's existing, right? They had to figure out a way to market these properties. So I think a lot of people now use the MLS as a crutch, and they don't really do any marketing. They put it in the MLS, it broadcasts out to the rest of the agents, and they're crossing their fingers, hoping that one of these agents is going to bring them a buyer, right? Okay. So there's plenty of marketing that we can do before we actually put the property into the MLS. And then there's obviously a lot of additional marketing that we want to do after the property goes into the MLS and goes out to the agents.
Okay, so there's more than one place where you could do some coming soon advertisement. So where are the places that it makes the most sense to do some coming soon marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number one place is you got to have a website that allows you to do and post coming soons to that property, right? And then you can do landing pages through your website, and you can drive traffic to there to start to advertise it out there. You can also start to reach out to some of the other agents that you think are, competitive in the marketplace to say, hey, look, we've done some deals together in the past. I'd love to work with you on this one. Here's what I've got.
All right.
Yep. So I think it's a great way to get the word out there. Is now you are reaching out to the top players in the marketplace who most likely have potential buyers for that property.
Okay, so I know that when it comes to marketing, timing is a big thing. For the success of your efforts. So sure. When is the best time to initiate some coming soon marketing?
Yeah, I mean, my personal philosophy is about a week before you're actually going to go live, so that in case your coming soon marketing doesn't work, that you are actually going to bring this property soon. So I think if things drag out 3 weeks, 4 weeks of coming, like there's no buzz about that property. So about a week before is the practice that I like to follow.
Okay. Now, why go through all of these processes? Like, what kind of value can it bring to a client of yours to do coming soon marketing?
So I think there's really two ways that you can apply pressure to a buyer, right? So in this market, right now we're dealing with a lot of low inventory, right? Okay. So when you just bring a property to market, there are, oftentimes could be a bidding war if the property is priced correctly. Mm-hmm. When you have a bidding war, that applies pressure, right? So the buyers go in, whether that's private showings or an open house, and they see a lot of other potential interest in a property, it could force them to bump up their offer, maybe even go over the asking price. Okay. But another way that you can accomplish that same thing is picture a buyer who has lost out on multiple opportunities on properties because there's been multiple offers and they've lost the bids, right? And now you dangle a carrot out and say, hey, I've got this listing. It hasn't hit the MLS soon. I wanted to tell you about it, right? But you're going to have to come with a strong offer or else they're not going to pull this property off the market, right? So now you can apply pressure when you've only got one potential buyer, maybe even say, and you can apply pressure to that buyer to get that seller the top dollar, right? And as a listing agent, that's what you're trying to do. You're being hired by a seller to get top dollar for that property.
Right. So there's a lot of positives to it as we go through this discussion, but there has to be some sort of a drawback or something that agents should keep in mind when they're thinking about doing coming soon marketing. So are there any things like that you want to touch on?
Sure. First of all, the when, right? So when you do this coming soon marketing, you still have a listing agreement that has started with that seller. When you then bring it into the MLS, the MLS is going to count your days on market, right? So if you've been, if you do 2 or 3 weeks and now you come to market in the MLS, it will show 21 days on market. So not all buyers are going to be aware of that, but an educated one or one that's asking their agent about days on market, that's going to show up. So you got to be careful there. The other thing is it's not meant for every single property. You've got to understand the pricing strategy, the situation of your seller, and if it's going to make sense for that person. So if you're not on the same page with your seller and you guys haven't made a decision as to what you're going to accept pre-market, and now all of a sudden we get an offer, so we do all of our pre-marketing, we get an offer, and the seller says, I don't know, let's just bring the property to market, right? And that might have been your best number. So if you didn't have that conversation, you're not in rapport with your seller, I don't know that this is, and then based on the situation of that seller, it might not just be right for that property.
All right. I think that's a good overview of coming soon marketing. Thank you. Another good episode in the books.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, if you have any questions for us for a future episode of the Ask the Agent show, you can reach us on any of the social media platforms at Rovithis Realty. We're really welcoming, and we look forward to any feedback you got.
Thanks, guys.